Welcome to Adoption, a breakdown, where we break down adoption and other stuff. Well, here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Adoption, a breakdown, where we break down adoption and other things. My name's John, working on a book about adoption, and hopefully it'll be done next year. But in the meantime, I'd like to jump into some other topics. And today's topic, as you guys can see, is about imposter syndrome. Now, I'm not talking about Among Us, despite what some of you may think. No, I'm talking about the psychological issue that lots of people struggle with. Dictionary or Oxford's dictionary defines imposter syndrome as the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. The website verywellmind.com goes on to say that, to put it simply, imposter syndrome is the experience of feeling like a phony. You feel as though at any moment you are going to be found out as a fraud, like you don't belong where you are and you only got there through dumb luck. Now, some of you may be thinking, why talk about imposter syndrome even though this is about adoption? And your first video you didn't talk about adoption, really. And that's a good question. And well, I wanted to bring up imposter syndrome because I feel like people who have been adopted or who have been through something similar, that is a feeling that we struggle with a lot as we're growing up, as we're learning to interact with people, as we're learning to make friends, as we're learning to navigate romantic relationships. I think a lot of people who are adopted wrestle with this feeling of, am I really in the situation that I deserve to be in of my own merit? Or am I just totally undeserving of this? Now, that may not make sense, but let me just say that, in my own experience growing up and wrestling with adoption, my self-thought, the things I thought about myself were very negative because, I dealt with being bullied growing up for being different, and I dealt with, people treating me poorly because I was Asian in a predominantly white town. And so a lot of my young life, was being a kid, but also growing up and becoming a young person. All of a sudden I started to feel this imbalance of wait a second, what is this thing that I'm struggling with? What is this self-identity thing I'm struggling with right now? I feel different. People are treating me differently. I feel poorly. People are treating me poorly. I guess I must be those things. If people are treating me this way and I'm feeling this way, I guess that means that I am that. In other words, trash, useless, worthless, you know, weird, abnormal. And so, obviously, that's not true. And for adopted people who are feeling like that, that's not true. But as I started to grow older and I started to have those epiphanies and have those moments of clarity where I was like, oh, where the floodgates would open up in my mind. Those were great experiences, and those are very important, and I think it's very important for many adopted people who are growing up, many adopted people now who are able to make that connection. But really, where imposter syndrome, I believe, comes into play is those moments following that epiphany, because it's like, okay, I understand I'm not trash. But then you have the struggle of trying to smell the roses, of being in the moment, of telling yourself and reassuring yourself that oh, like wow, all those negative things I told myself while growing up, and all those negative things that people told me while growing up, they're not only are they not true, but they continue to not be true. And so now when I'm making friendships and I'm pursuing romantic relationships, or I'm trying to get this job, or I'm trying to do well in school, or I'm trying to do well in sports, all of a sudden, now that I make that connection and I apply myself and I work hard, all of a sudden I realize, yes, all the hard work I'm putting in, that is translating to a reward, or translating to something good. All of a sudden I have to continuously realize that hard work I put in to achieve this thing, it is inherently good. Like, this is a little hard for me to explain. But let me try to explain it from the perspective of someone with imposter syndrome. So, let's say, you're in, I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say you're in high school and you're trying to, do well in school, do well in your classes, study, take your tests, all that. And you're doing what you're supposed to do and you're getting good grades, but you have a really low self-esteem and you don't think you belong, and you don't think that you're worthwhile. You're not going to be in a position to encourage yourself to push forward to greater heights. If you're struggling with imposter syndrome, even if you are achieving things, it's you're just getting the bare minimum, because you're not wanting to encourage yourself, you're not wanting to push yourself, you're not wanting to find your limits. Instead, imposter syndrome acts like a chain that holds you back, that says, okay, yeah, you got good stuff, you experienced good things, but really, these things aren't good because you don't deserve it, because you're weird and dumb and trash on the inside, and you don't deserve these things. And actually, you're just a faker, so you're just kind of faking it till you make it. So you shouldn't even try to get more good stuff, because really, you're just a bad guy. You're an imposter. And so, being able to deal with imposter syndrome in the context of a job or school or work or sports or relationship is akin to taking off chains that hold you back, taking off chains. And I just want to bring it up now because I feel like people who are adopted have, I would be willing to bet a lot of them have that negative thoughts about themselves. They have those negative mindsets. They have those negative feelings. They have self hatred. They have, you know, terrible, terrible self feelings for them, for who they are as a person. You know, there isn't any love. They don't love themselves. And that, I believe, the lack of love for themselves, I believe, breeds imposter syndrome. And so, you know, for me, that's definitely something I experienced. Yeah, I mean, there are a couple different times where I've like experienced something good, and then it was like, man, am I really experiencing this for what it really is, or did I just luck out? I'm trying to think of a good example in my life where that was true. What time in my life did I say what the good thing I'm achieving now here is not because I'm good, it's because I'm an imposter. I think a good example would be my experience as an RA and at the Christian college I went to. I don't want to name drop the college because I'm not trying to badmouth the college. And you know, other people's experience as an RA is not going to be like mine. But essentially, for me, I had built up being an RA as like this dream job that like would make all my problems go away, because other RAs at the college were like super cool people, you know, super godly, super. They had their life together, you know, and I didn't have my life together at the time. And so, like, I thought in my mind, if I could get this job, that it would be because, you know, things were just turning around for me. And I would say there were times, and I got the job, and I would say there were times when that was, and it wasn't true. Like, there were times when I actually did my job, and like I had a good time and I did the things I was supposed to. And then there were definitely times where it's like, okay, yeah, I feel like I'm just kind of coasting. I'm kind of coasting this. I'm really not, you know, doing what I should be doing. And so it's kind of half and half with that situation, because like I did step down from that job, and I think struggling with imposter syndrome probably had a lot to do with that decision. But I think I was also wrestling with depression too, and thoughts of self harm. And so, you know, there's a lot of comorbidities, as it were, during that time. But yeah, I mean, there have definitely been lots of times for me when I've like felt like I didn't belong, and I felt like I was out of place because I felt like there was something wrong with me. And I feel like a lot of adopted people feel like that, or people who have experienced stuff like that. Pardon the interruption of myself, but I just finished recording And then I remembered a specific instance of imposter syndrome, and I was like, man, I wish I would have mentioned that or added that. So I'm gonna add it right now. So one time recently, these last couple of weeks, I was driving back to my parents' place to do laundry, as one does, And in passing, I passed an old friend's house from high school. And I've been out of high school over 10 years. And I actually saw in the driveway my friend who I guess was visiting, who I used to be really, really close with in high school. And she was there. And I like drove past her, and we kind of did that movie moment where it's like I kind of made eye contact with her, but like kept going, sort of thing. And but I saw this old friend that I was really close with in high school recently, and it made me feel like an imposter, because this person achieved a lot in high school. She was popular in high school, model, student, did a lot of things, extracurricular things. A lot of people liked her. She was a great person to be around, funny, intelligent. And after she graduated, she went on to do all this really great stuff. I don't want to say who it is. I don't want to like expose them if they don't want to be exposed. But this person went on, and they were one of those people in high school who like you always knew they were going to be successful. And then after they graduated, they went and they were successful at a very high level. And I didn't really keep up with her after we graduated, because she moved many, many states away. But I was always like, whenever I see posts of hers on social media, I'd just be like, yeah, like, look at all this stuff that she's accomplishing. And yeah, like, man, that's great. And so fast forward to me seeing her recently, I was like, whoa, oh, whoa. In my mind, I was like, oh, whoa, here's that person that I used to be really good friends with that went on and did all this great stuff. And I haven't really done as much great stuff in my life in comparison. And normally when you have a really good friend you haven't seen in a while, you talk to them and you catch up. And I'm actually feel kind of bad admitting this, but I saw her and I didn't want to talk to her, because I felt ashamed. I felt like in my mind, if I told her all the things that I had done recently or failed to do, like, it would be, I would be disappointing. And so in my mind, that in of itself is a really great example of that imposter syndrome creeping up, being like, no, like, you haven't really accomplished anything these last couple years, like, even though I have. And like, you're nothing compared to all this stuff that she's done. So that's a really good example. Just wanted to add it. Back to the main video. So I wanted to go over some things that I think were helpful for me to dealing with imposter syndrome, and that might be helpful for other people. Now, this isn't like, now, let me be clear and say this isn't therapy. I'm not a therapist. I'm not licensed. This is just friendly advice. This is friendly advice. What you take away from this, it's up to you. I want to see people succeed, um, but I'm also not legally liable, for other stuff. Yada 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 yada. Disclaimer, disclaimer. You know the drill. Essentially, what I'm saying is, I'm just trying to help you, and you can take my help if you want. If you don't want to, that's fine. So I think a big thing about helping people deal with imposter syndrome is getting to a point where you're comfortable with yourself. Like, essentially, like, getting to a point where you don't hate yourself. Yeah, sure, there are parts of ourselves we all like want to improve, and that's natural. But I think if you're at a place where you just like feel like your whole identity as a person is totally negative, and like you you're quick to agree with all of the criticism and judgment that people give, even if it's wrong, I think that people need to realize that they aren't trash, they aren't garbage. Everybody deserves a second chance, and everybody has something to give, value, even if you can't see it or you can't recognize it's there. And yeah, it's there. And I think something that feeds into that's related to that is, you know, this idea of we are all very quick to compare ourselves to other people. We're so quick to compare ourselves to our friends, our family, strangers. And, social media doesn't make it any better. In fact, it's probably one of the biggest reasons why it's terrible right now. This idea of comparison. Um, I don't know who said it, but there's a saying that goes along the lines of I'm gonna get this wrong. It's like comparison is the thief of joy, like jealousy or envy is the thief of joy. It's like something along the lines of that. But I think when we're all sitting around just looking at all the things that everybody else has that we don't have, I think one of the things that you don't see in social media is the background, behind the scenes work that all those people put in to get to those places. So, like, those people, role models you look up to, you, even if they're inherently good on the internet, like, they didn't just stumble into those things that make them good role models. They had to work for those things. They had to sacrifice for those things. They had to really, really put in the blood, sweat, and tears. It's not like they're Greek goddess statues that appeared overnight. They were human too, you know, and we're all human. We've all made mistakes, and we're all trying to get somewhere that we want to go, and so we we really need to stop comparing ourselves to others in a way that brings ourselves down. Like, obviously, it's totally normal to use people as inspiration and motivation, but once you're using it as a way to just be completely negative towards yourself with no positive reinforcement or positive goal in mind, like, then you're just beating yourself up, and you're not going to get anywhere, and it's bad. Like, don't do that. Stop doing that. Stop beating yourself up. You don't deserve it. And another thing that I think really helps with people, that could help with people along those lines, is learning to accept the things you can't change. There's like an old religious saying that goes along those lines. I can't remember it. I'm sorry. I keep half remembering these things. I'm sorry. I think the one religious saying is like, "Dear God, give me the will to accept the things I cannot change, but the strength to change the things I can," or something like that. And that's something that's really hard hitting. I think for people who have been adopted, or who have gone through things that are similar, because like you can't change the past. You can't change that you're adopted. You can't change the decisions that were made for you. I can't change them. And it's hard. It's incredibly hard to accept that like I I experienced all this hardship and I experienced all these difficulties, but like I didn't get a say. Like I didn't. No one asked my opinion. Like it wasn't my choice. And you're right. It's not fair. And it's you know that's the old saying. When life gives you lemons. But quite honestly, I hate that saying. I hate that saying because I think it's so dismissive. I really. This is kind of a side, an aside. This is kind of a tangent, but really, the only thing that life owes anybody is a punch in the mouth. And I believe that, and I strongly believe that. I strongly believe that every single person that ever has or will or does exist, life is going to punch everyone in the mouth as hard as it can. And it's going to keep punching them until they respond. And I think people who have been adopted, or who have gone through something similar, it just means that like, you know, life really punched us hard. You know, we got an extra 1-2 combo. And it's not fair. It's not cool. It's not right. But those issues and that pain and that darkness, if you just let it sit there, if you just let it exist, there's nothing is going to come of that. If you just let all of that negativity fester, it's actually just going to get worse. And so one of the biggest things for me in my life and my wrestling with my own adoption has been telling myself over and over again, like, it's not my fault. Yeah, I'm not trying to do that one movie with the Goodwill Hunting. I'm not trying to do that, but uh, it's true. You know, it's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's not your parents' fault. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's just how it is. It's just how it is, and that's okay. And we can face it together. We charge ahead, face forward. We don't let it hold us down. We don't let it drag us down. We don't let it chain us. We don't let it bind us. It'd be really easy for me to just sit and be sad and say all the bad things in my life happened because I was adopted. All of the bad things happened in my life because things didn't go the way I expected them to. I could say, woe is me, I'm the saddest person that ever existed because, golly, I wish my life was different. And I could complain and whine and be sad all the time. And I say that, and I don't want to dismiss anyone's feelings. You can certainly feel sad and be upset and be angry. That's fine. Your feelings are legitimate. And I want you to be sad. I want you to be angry. Don't bottle those feelings. But your outlook in life, your approach to life shouldn't be to tell everyone or to sit in the shadows and just rot. You'll have plenty of time to decay once we've passed away. And like one of the things that really helped me was making the connection that life is truly limitless. Steve Jobs says a quote along the lines that's like, everything that you've ever experienced in the world was conceived by people that are no smarter than you or me. Like, so what that means is, like, for me, what helped me is realizing, like, yeah, like, I've been dealt a terrible hand, but if I choose to try to make my life better, if I choose to try to make my experience better, I can definitely try to do that. And as cliche and meta as it sounds, that's part of why I'm doing this. That's part of why I'm doing the podcast. It's part of why I'm writing the book, is because it's therapeutic for me. Like, I want to be able to help people, but it also helps me. It reminds me. Helps me check in with myself. Helps me be like, oh yeah, like I did learn that. Yeah. Like, life is really limitless, and I really am not a piece of garbage just because I was adopted. All these good things that I'm trying to work towards now, like, I've achieved them, and I should be proud of them. And I shouldn't dismiss them just because I felt sad or people have told me I'm weird or dumb or abnormal. That I should have pride. And it's okay to have pride. It's okay to stick out your chest and say, yeah, I did that. When you did a good thing. So, yeah, that is my take on imposter syndrome. Thanks, everybody, for listening. You're more than what you were born in this world to be. If you feel like an imposter, it's okay. Everybody's been an imposter at one time in their life. And if they're acting like they haven't been, they're just trying to mask their insecurity by pretending like they weren't a noob or they weren't a rookie. Literally, if you've started or been a beginner at anything, like you felt like an imposter because you don't know what you're doing. But literally, like that's everyone that's ever tried to live their life. Like everybody was learning about how to live their own lives, and eventually you start to get better at it, and you start to do a good job. So thanks for doing a good job, and you are doing a good job. There you go. And I think I want to end today with a little special segment, fortune cookie segment, courtesy of the Chinese buffet in my town, unopened. Okay. Let's see if it'll. What? Oh gosh. I don't know if it'll focus. Sorry. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Lucky numbers 31, 3, 57, 17, 12. I've had worse fortunes. Alright, thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you later. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Adoption, a Breakdown, where we break down adoption and other stuff. See you next time. Bye-bye.